In our last episode, we looked at the Pilgrims, a small group of believers who crossed the Atlantic seeking freedom of conscience. They were not perfect. They didn't always extend that freedom to others, but they helped open a door. Today, we step through that door because the Pilgrims were only the beginning. Early America would become home to many Protestant traditions, sometimes cooperating, sometimes clashing, and together they shaped a culture where faith mattered deeply, but control over that faith became harder to maintain. This is the story of Protestant roots in America and how religious diversity quietly sowed the seeds of liberty. To understand Protestantism in early America, we need to remember where these settlers came from. Most were shaped by the Protestant Reformation in Europe, a movement that challenged the idea that kings and church hierarchies stood between God and the individual. These believers carried a few powerful ideas with them: that Scripture mattered, that faith was personal, and that conscience couldn't be commanded by force. They came from England, Scotland, Germany, and the Netherlands. Some were fleeing persecution, others were seeking opportunity. Many were simply following religious traditions into a new land. But once in America, something changed. Without a single church in charge of everything, religious life became more local, more personal, more diverse. In New England, Puritan and Congregational churches shaped daily life. Church membership mattered, moral behavior mattered, community mattered. Local congregations governed themselves. Decisions were made close to home where members knew each other. Education was a priority, not for status or wealth, but so individuals could read the Bible for themselves. Yet here's the honest truth. These communities valued order, sometimes at the expense of tolerance. They believed deeply in religious truth, but not always religious freedom for those who disagreed. And still, without realizing it, their emphasis on local decision-making and shared responsibility planted habits that would later echo in American civic life. In the southern colonies, the Church of England held greater influence. Faith was more closely tied to government. Church life followed familiar English traditions. Religious authority felt stable and comfortable. But even here, the New World slowly loosened controls. Distances were great, local traditions took hold, and enforcement of religious conformity was uneven at best. Over time, the idea that faith could be directed from afar grew weaker. Other Protestant groups brought different ideas. Presbyterians emphasized representative leadership, elders chosen from the community. This structure quietly reinforced ideas about shared authority and accountability. Quakers went even further. They rejected religious violence. They spoke openly about equality. They insisted conscience belonged to the individual, not the state. Their beliefs made them outsiders in many places, but their presence forced early Americans to wrestle with a difficult question. If faith is sincere, can it truly be compelled? Disagreements became unavoidable, and with disagreements came experience, sometimes painful, in learning how to live alongside difference. Across these Protestant traditions, one pattern stands out. People were encouraged to read, to think, to wrestle with Scripture and belief personally. This emphasis led to schools. Schools led to informed communities, and informed communities began expecting a voice, not just in church, but in local affairs. Church meetings looked a lot like town meetings. Votes were taken, arguments were heard, leaders were questioned. Faith did not create democracy, but it helped Americans practice the habits that made self-government possible. America was not born tolerant, but it became impossible to enforce one faith everywhere. Too many voices, too many convictions, too many communities shaped by sincere belief. Over time, experience taught a hard lesson. Faith grows strongest when it's free, not when it's forced. This lesson would shape future awakenings, influence the founders, and eventually find its way into the First Amendment. Religious liberty didn't arrive all at once. It grew slowly through practice, conflict, and conscience. America's Protestant roots are not about one church winning. They are about many believers learning over time that faith cannot be commanded by law. From these early struggles came a simple but powerful truth that liberty of conscience isn't a threat to faith, but its strongest protector. If you like this story and are enjoying Patriot Hippie, please leave a like, subscribe, share with your friends. Until next time, peace, freedom, and the American story.